All right, let's kick off. So welcome to the fourth webinar in our technical series. Today, Michael will discuss how stores work in StoreConnect. If you have any questions, drop them into the Q&A tab, not in the chat, and then Michael will answer them during the presentation or at the end. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, and that was, of course, Virginia Gordon,
there
our
you go.
growth manager. I forgot to introduce herself.
I forgot to introduce myself.
Oh my gosh.
It's not Monday-itis, it's Tuesday-itis.
That's right. One job, Virginia, one job. No, just kidding. Fantastic at what she does. She's our partner person for all of our partners, and she helps make sure that we grow with our alliances with our partners to help expand their business. So she's fantastic and always available for you if you have any questions. As Virginia said, yes, definitely put your stuff in the Q&A so we can make sure it gets answered. So today we're going to talk about StoreConnect stores, and StoreConnect stores are an interesting topic. They're the center of the universe, if you like, within StoreConnect. You've got products, but you can only sell a product through a store. You've got content pages, but content pages only appear through a store. Everything really revolves around the store in StoreConnect. It's even in the name. So you can see that during the setup process there, that's actually a screenshot of our setup process. One of the first things you do is create the store itself. So what is a store? So the stores are a core of StoreConnect, and you can see on that image there of the web browser flicking through, all 6 of those stores are all actually running on the same StoreConnect environment and the same Salesforce org live. They've all got different products. They've all got different branding. They have different designs, different colors, different pricing, even different currencies. So there's stores, some of those are in Europe, some are in America, some are in Australia, and they're all run off that one environment. So this is a very powerful function of StoreConnect, this multi-store capability. And the real benefit of that is having everything within your one Salesforce organization. So you might have a client, or you might be a company that has multiple storefronts that you need to sell on, but it's all well and good having multiple storefronts. Reporting against those can be a real challenge. So we have one client actually just signed up recently with us that has over something in the order of 70 different e-commerce stores, you know, on Shopify, Magento, BigCommerce, all that sort of stuff. And we're migrating all 70 stores, which are, by the way, in 4 countries and in 4 currencies, into one Salesforce org with one StoreConnect license. And you can imagine the amount of time saved from that. I mean, right now, when they need to go and add a product, they have to go and add it to 8 stores individually. And when the CEO wants a report, they have to go and sign into 73 stores and get all the reports together and then give them the report. I mean, it's crazy. So this is where that really comes into its own. But stores are not just multi-site. There's a whole heap of functionality around it. And today we're going to go into what are stores. It's going to be a lot of demo today. I'm not going to do a lot of slides. In fact, this is the last slide before the demo. I'm just going to dive in, and we're going to go through every item on the store record and explain what it does and why it's there, as well as the related list of all the store objects, and show you how it all hangs together. So let's dive straight into a bit of a demo, and very interested in any questions you have as we go through. So here we are on a store object. Now, just as a tip, you might not have this layout. You'll probably have the standard just details layout. You can make this via a layout by editing the page here and creating a new page and choosing the header with sidebar layout and put the related list on one side, the detail record on one side. It just makes it easier to see everything in one go as you go through it. So this store, as you can see, is our partner webinar store. If you've been following along in our series, you'll be familiar with it. It looks like this over here. And we've got this store signed up. It's ready to go. So let's have a look at some of the details in this. So first off, we've got the store name. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's your internal name that references the store. So you might end up with a whole bunch of different stores and you need different store names for each one. That's just internal. That doesn't get used anywhere else. You can see it's not being used up here in the navigation bar. That's something else, which I'll show in a minute. That's under the metadata, but that's just your store name. The code, that's just an internal code for this store. It's automatically generated off the name. You don't really need to worry about it. It's useful if you're doing some querying against the database or the Salesforce database or with some liquid, things like that. You can find the store with that code. That's the code that's going to be used on that. This is the theme that we're using. We're using the partner webinar theme, and there's also a store theme. So the store theme is, we had these sort of inbuilt themes that come with StoreConnect. These are starting to get deprecated, and we'll be using these general themes into the future. So this is where we've actually chosen a theme that we've developed, and that's now saved on the store. So themes is part of the last webinar I did, and if you didn't watch that, it's very well worth going and watching. And I actually remembered after I finished the webinar that I forgot to say, well, how do you actually turn the theme on your store? And this is where you do it. So normally it would just be like this. You come in and you select that theme, and that's then live. Next up on this is the store domain name. Now, this is the domain name that the store is going to respond to, right? So if we go to some of our client stores, so that one that I was just showing you with Frozen, I'll just open up some of these. So you can see that each of these has their own domain name. We've got Frozen Playbill, we've got Cursed Child Store, and we've got Shop Hamilton the Musical. All of those are separate domain names and separate stores on the one Salesforce environment. So if we wanted to make this the Hamilton website, we would put that in there, but take off everything except for the actual domain name itself. You also don't have to put the www at the front. It will automatically add that and respond to both if you want. If you do specify the www, then it will only work with that base domain name. So something to bear in mind there. You can have multiple stores on the same domain. And this is where you might want to do things like having multiple paths for multiple stores, or say for different regions or things like that. And that's usually different regions is the most common reason to have a multi-path store. But just to give you an example of how that might work. So we've got this partner webinar store here. We'll just go and create a new store. And we'll copy over some of these details. So we'll get that domain name over here, and we'll call this just the special path partner special path store. There we go. Something nice and, really obvious. We'll give it the same. Actually, we won't give it anything. So we'll put it on the same domain name, but we'll call this and we'll give it just a special path. Now, the path, let's call it that. So the path in this case is a domain name or a path within the storefront that is going to hang together and show the store. So if we go to this domain name still, it'll just be like that. And now if we go to special path here, it's going to say that it can't find a taxonomy because this store has been created, but there's no taxonomy, so it won't display anything. Now, just one thing to bear in mind at the moment, these paths, when you add them, whenever you create a new store with a new path, you need to raise a support ticket to get us to restart your servers, because we cache all of that up front, just to make sure that we're not doing a database query every single request coming in, because the number of stores that you have on your site doesn't change that often. And having that database query on every single request is quite wasteful. So we cache that information. We are making this an automatic feature into the future where it will automatically restart your server. But for the meantime, just lodge a support ticket. So we've got no taxonomy. So how would we fix that? Well, it's in the name, right? Add a taxonomy. So let's go down here and have a look. And there should be a field over here. And there it is, taxonomies. So taxonomies are collections of product categories. So we'll call this the special store taxonomy. And we'll save that. And that's now going to update over to StoreConnect, the website, in a moment. And then the other thing we might want to put on here is a little homepage. So we can come down here and we can see we've got our home page, and let's just create a home page here. So we'll just call it Partner Special Path Home Page. It's Partner Special Path Store, and we'll just put on home. And this is our home page. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and save that. And then we'll save that store. And of course, what's happening now is that's all getting synchronized across. So if we go reload over here now, it's still thinking about it, but that's all right. Let's just make sure that that happens now. Got our taxonomy. And let's just do this. So what's happening is we're capturing all that data, pulling it across to Salesforce, and it can take a little bit of time for these to synchronize across. That is another actual major upgrade that we are doing on our platform over the coming months, is a fast sync. So right now it can take a couple of minutes occasionally for that data to move back and forth. We're in process of developing out our new StoreConnect sync solution, which will take that down to a couple of seconds. And for anyone who's been using StoreConnect for a while, you can understand just how amazing that will be. So that should have synchronized across by now. So let's go have a look. There it is, right? So we've got our store, we've got our title on that content block, and you can see that this store compared to the main store. So if we go to the other one, these are completely different, right? They've got different product categories, all sorts of stuff. Now, they could share a whole bunch of stuff if you wanted, and we can go through that and have a look at that as we move through. So that's what the path is for. The most common use of the path is doing something like this, where you go, you know, AU for the Australia store or EU for the European store, but that hangs in together there. Next, we've got our zone. Now, zones work with the same zones that are used for shipping and taxes. And what the zone is used for is if you are going to do geolocation rerouting on a client store. So when you land at the primary domain name, the StoreConnect, if you install the geolocation plugin, and you just need to raise a support ticket for that, it does cost a little bit per month because we have to pay for the IP address lookups and stuff. But with that geolocation plugin, StoreConnect will have a look at that incoming request, and it will match the IP address to a region. And then it will look into your store setup and see if you have a store with a zone on that region. And if so, it will prefer to show that zone store as opposed to the main landing zone or what have you. So these zones can be all the way down to postcodes. With IP address lookups, you probably don't want to go to the postcode level. You could, but they're not necessarily that accurate with IP addresses. I think my IP address is listed up somewhere north of Gosford, and I'm actually in the northern beaches of Sydney. So, you know, there's sort of a limitation to how accurate, but you could definitely do New South Wales, or you could do a state or California or Europe. And we have several clients using this right now. I mean, a really good example is one of our clients, SellAid. They're a fantastic organization. You can see here that I went to SellAid.io and I was redirected to the EU, to the Australian store, because it detected my IP address. And I mean, I can always change to another store here. That's completely fine. And it'll help me go on to that. And I've done that, or I can go to, say, the UK one, it will go to the UK store. So this geolocation support is handled via this zone field here. So I'll just go back to the main part. Actually, no, I'll stay over here. So when you're adding a zone, you would just go ahead and create that zone, and you would call it Australia. Once you've created that zone, you then need to add a country or a state or a postcode to it in order for that to be hooked together. And you can look up the help documentation on how that works. The locale, if you have more than one translation that you're using. So remember, if you watched our themes call, you can put translations into themes, and each theme can have multiple translations. You can have French or German or English, what have you, as a whole category. So then each store can have a locale that then looks up the translation keys within that theme. So say you were building a storefront that was going to be in multiple languages. The way you would go about doing that is you would make a theme with a localized translation for each locale that you wanted. So English, French, German, Spanish, Chinese. And then you would assign that same theme to 4 different stores. And then each store you would set its locale, right? And that's how you would then have those multiple languages within the storefronts. And then on each store, you would set its zone to be the countries that you wanted that locale to work for. And then that would show up and redirect automatically onto that locale. We just had a question around, is there a restriction on the number of zones for each level? No, there's no restrictions on the number of zones, although on the small plan, there is a restriction on the number of stores that you can have. So I think we allow up to 2 simultaneous stores on the small plan. If you have a specific requirement on a very low traffic website, you can contact us and negotiate that. It is a soft limit, but I think on the small plan also we support up to 250 transactions a month or something like that. So yeah, but there's no limit on the number of zones. I mean, there's probably a practical upper limit. You know, if you're going to create a zone for every postcode on Earth, you're probably going to crash your website because it will be too slow. But yeah, there's no enforced limit. Good. That's a good question. Thank you. So yeah, that was locales. Then we have this here, the default store. Now this is important. What the default store does, if we look over on this partner webinar, like the main store, we've got the default store set here to be checked. And what the default store means is if we can't find a store or a path on the domain name that we're looking at, show this store instead. Yeah. So why is that important? Well, if we look over here and we see that we're on special path and this is a separate store, right? So that means anything like this about us, that's going to look up a page within the special path store on that domain name, right? So if we go there, it won't show it because there is no about us page within that store. So let's go create that about us page just to demonstrate what we're talking about here. So I'll just, I might just open up a new tab here. So we're just going to create a partner webinar store page. And we're going to call this about us. And we'll give it the special path store. Now remember, pages relate to stores directly. The path we'll just call about us. And we'll just put about us special store. Good. So we've created that about us page. That will now synchronize across in just a moment. But what we've got now is we've got an interesting situation where if we also go in here, we've also got an about us page. We've got these, right? So here's another about us page, and this has got the same path, but you can see that this is on our bold theme demo store. So I'm just going to temporarily change this to be our partner store, our main partner store, right? So this is an important thing to understand about stores and paths and default stores, right? So if we're over here and now we go about us, we'll see that about us page. This was the one that came from the partner, the one I just reassigned. But if we go to this page here and go about us, this is going to show the about us page that's assigned to this store, right? Because that store's in between. That path is there. So if we just take that path out and go to about us, it's going to go back to the main store, which has a little annoying JavaScript pop-up. But that shows you what I mean by having to make sure that you've got the right stores on the right paths. If you have the same content that you want to share across multiple stores, the way you do it is you make pages for each store. And then instead of having this text down here, you just render the content blocks, and you can share the content blocks across multiple stores. So if we go into these content block over here, we can see that we've got this pop-up alert. I'm not actually going to remove that because it's really annoying. So we've got this web to lead form, right? So what we can also do on the other About Us page, wherever that went, this one. So let's put that web to lead form in here as well. And we'll save that. And then the other thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we're rendering the content blocks. So we'll go back over here and just copy that. So see down here, we've got this content page, render content blocks right there. So that's going to take the content blocks that are on the page associated with it and render them. So we'll put that down here. So I'll just go like that. So now we've done that. The next thing we can do is when we go to our partner store, so this one obviously stays the same because we didn't do anything with that. But when we go to this one and reload, it's going to now show that same web to lead form. And that web to lead form is the same web to lead form that's right here, right? So that's how you share content across multiple stores. Good. Moving right along. The next things we've got here, so default store, what that does is if for some reason we type in some random URL here, so instead of special path, we go special path 2, right? Now that's not a store. So what's going to happen is it's going to look up that as a page on the default store, right? So that's what's happening there. If it can't find the store with that path, it's going to use the default store to look up that store. Good. Next, we've got cache version. This is a handy little thing. So sometimes when you're doing changes on StoreConnect, our caching is taking too long. Like there might be a 3-minute cache on your website or something like that. You want to bust that cache right away and just make sure it's refreshing. Just come in here and edit this to the next number. Another way you can do this is you can put today's date in if you want, 07/12, and make this number 1 that we're doing it. You could even put a hyphen in there if you wanted. It doesn't really matter. Any string, as long as that string changes, it'll refresh the cache in a few seconds, maybe about 5 or 6 seconds. And anything that's cached on your website will be cleared out. The only exception to that is product pricing data. That has its own search engine. We are also working to integrate that. So it's all just part of the one caching system. And we'll have that launched probably towards the end of this year. But this is a quick way to just cancel any cache that you see, like it's caching some old content. Booking hold duration is what's the default hold duration we do for when you're placing a booking. So that's, for example, if we go to the bold theme store, oops, we go to this one. This is an example where I've unchecked a default store because I was playing with it earlier today. So this is where there's multiple domain names, but it can't find the default store. So let's go and fix that right now, shall we? So let's go search for that domain name in terms of all the stores. And while we're searching for it, let's just specify it's in the store object just to make it easier to locate. So these are all the stores that have that same domain name on it, right? And obviously you can see the problem, right? Because all of these have got their own, none of them are the default. So if we go in here and we change this one to the default store and save that, that will now go through its little operation and it will resynchronize. And if we go to that same, where is it? There we are. It'll take a little minute, but that will then come up and that will go live. So the booking duration is when that comes up. Let me just make sure what's happening there. Just wondering if I refresh the wrong store there. I probably need to do this. and that will come up in a minute. So I'll show that booking duration in a minute. It's just how many minutes do we hold that in the cart waiting until we expire it and remove it from the pool of being able to book it, which is useful because when you're booking for an event, sometimes the tickets go and you want to be able to release those back into the cart. Disabling the store, this is where you want to turn a store off temporarily. So maybe you need to take it down for maintenance or something like that. This is where you would do that. And that can happen at multiple points within your environment. But to give you a quick example of how that might work while we're on here. So we've got our special path store. So there we are. Good, that's running. So we're on let's just go back to that one. Here we are, special path store. So we're going to create a content block. Now, when you're creating these, if you do just create a simple content block, I prepared some text, but just choose a text content block here for a simple special path maintenance page, partner maintenance page. There we go. And you can just put some text in here like this. We are offline for maintenance. Now, if you use a text content block template and you save this, and then you disable the store and save it, that will go ahead and create just a simple design showing that page. So if we go over to that store now and refresh, it's going to show something like this. And you can see that it's copied in that content block. It's made this a mail to link, which you can use. You can embed anything within that. If you don't want a design like this, you can overwrite that through themes by specifying the maintenance template. But this is just an example of how you can hang that together and how you can show that store going live. To turn that off, obviously, you just go and turn it off. And then next time that you wanted to change it, you can go in here and edit that and change the times that you're offline, for example, and then save that again. And it's just a more friendlier way to show the page is offline, because then the clients can see that this isn't just broken, that you're actually down for doing something. As long as that's unchecked, obviously, this will go away and that will be live, even if this is still present. So you can toggle that on and off. Default time zone, this is the time zone that orders are placed in when they come through. So you can set that to be whatever time zone you want. Then we have our privacy compliance. I'm not going to get too much into this because it's a whole feature in of itself. But privacy compliance, back to our good friends at SellAid, that is this stuff down here, right? So we've got managing cookies, accepting all, things like that. So this is all fully built into StoreConnect, which is pretty rare. Not many e-commerce stores sort of include this stuff straight out of the box, but we do, and it saves a lot of money and a lot of work for clients having to implement their own privacy compliance. Because this works per store, you can see that if we go to Australia, we don't have the same compliance options requirement, right? So you can have it per store, per region, and that is all managed directly from in here, as well as over here under compliance groups and script blocks and style blocks. So a compliance group is like privacy or strictly necessary or whatever. And within that, you have different blocks of code that can be styling or JavaScript that show up as appropriate. Shipping, is shipping enabled? I mean, that's pretty straightforward. It just means, are you using shipping on this store? So if you're doing a lot of services type work and you're selling services or digital assets only, then you wouldn't bother having a whole shipping section. So you can turn that off. But otherwise, if you're actually shipping products, leave it on. Now we get into pricing. So this is where you need to, if you want to actually offer a product on your website, you need to choose a price book. So you can choose an existing price book. You don't have to make a unique price book per store. You do need to choose what currency you're in. So this is how on different region stores, you'd be showing different currency per different client. And again, on our SellAid example, if we go to the shop here, and we go into this sell aid product, you can see that that's $359. If we change to Europe and we go into the product, you can see it's 239 euros, right? So same product, different price. So that's done via the price book entry in Salesforce. It's a standard feature. Each store can only have one currency. So if you wanted to have a store with multiple currencies, you'd set up multiple stores with multiple currencies, right? One currency each. Same with your locale, same with your region, right? So you have zone, locale, currency, all tied together. That's what we're offering. If you wanted to change currency, you would then do that via a pop-up up the top, which switches you to another store and obviously then changes your currency at the same time. This feature, product pricing tax inclusive, is going to determine whether or not the prices displayed are listed as tax inclusive or not. So StoreConnect also has a tax system, which is based on zone as well in terms of the shipping to address, and it can also be on the shipping from address. So say in Australia, you have GST of 10%. You can have the prices displayed as tax inclusive on the website and say it says, you know, $110. During checkout, it will say $110 and underneath it will say including $10 tax, right? If you have the tax defined as a record. If you don't define the tax as a record, it can just say $110 including tax and you don't specify the tax separately. That's totally fine. Then the tax won't show up underneath as a separate line item. But if you do make it tax inclusive and have that tax, the pricing that's on your product page will be listed as tax inclusive as opposed to exclusive of tax. Pay by account enabled allows you to turn on the pay by account feature, which is a payment method, allowing users to pay on an account credit or account balance. And you can see these in here, they're account credits. So credits within that store, allowing you to specify a client, an account ID, you know, the demo account, they have $5,000 on account. This might expire in, you know, at that time. It's a store credit, or it could be a refund, a return, or a gift card. The account credit name, you know, account balance, and you can call it something else over here. So then when a user goes to do a checkout, they can actually debit off this account balance. They don't have to pay with a credit card. So that is in the package out of the box. Checkout terms and conditions. This is when you're going through the StoreConnect setup, allowing you to find out and see a custom terms and conditions during the checkout step. And that helps make sure that you know, users are accepting the terms and conditions, that they're you know, not just skipping through, and it requires them to actually click on, yes, I accept these terms and conditions to continue. So that is an optional terms and conditions step. So you can see we've got a terms and conditions here. We'll go and I'll just save that and we'll go and have a look at it to show you what that could look like. So here's the terms and conditions. This one's actually just rendering content blocks. So you could do that. You could render content blocks. You could also do things like this, where you go, if current cart product code included current cart, I think is the string. It might be something else there. Don't hold me to that one. Show these conditions version A. Else, they're obviously like this. So this would, on the terms and conditions page, show these conditions if this certain product is in the cart. Otherwise, it's going to show these conditions. So that's useful if you've got different products with different terms and conditions. You can dynamically fix that. And that allows quite complex solutions to your checkout problems. So say you've got both goods that do need specific terms and conditions and goods that don't, you can then only show those specific terms and conditions during checkout if the user has those terms and conditions in their cart at that time. If you don't specify anything here, it doesn't even show the terms and conditions step. And if you don't turn on shipping enabled, it also doesn't even show the shipping step during checkout. Depositor now, this is a store-wide setting. Say you're selling, $50,000 items on your store. You're obviously not going to take a credit card for $50,000, although if you have a product like that, please do get in touch. We'd love to help you. But maybe you only want to take $1,000 deposit during checkout. Then you can put $1,000 here, and that would then be store-wide. That the maximum that anyone can actually pay during checkout would be $1,000 or $100 or what have you. You can also set this on a per product basis individually, but if you wanted to do it store-wide, that's what that does. Quotations Enabled allows you, instead of taking a order and a checkout, it takes a quote and it creates it as a quote order, not as a full order, which you can then edit and that sort of thing. So one of our clients, StoreConnect, uses this very effectively. So when you go and buy one of their products, you don't actually see the pricing on the product page. You add it to a quote. And then what happens is someone from StoreConnect contacts you because you say, I want 200 of these, right? You add that to a quote, and that will then go through a checkout process on your account. And then you go and request that quote, you fill in your details, and then they'll contact you and give you the actual price. So that's what the quoting function does within StoreConnect. Then we've got some branding details here. So logo, this is what's showing up in the, if I can find it, where is it? There we go. That's what's showing up here, up the top left, company logo. That's what that is. And we've also got things like the email logo, which is the logo that you want to show on your transactional emails as they go out. You've got the social image logo. So that's the logo that you want to show. That's not a logo, but that's the image you want to show if someone just shares your homepage, right, on your store, because you want that image to be often quite different to whatever else you're doing. So that's your social image logo. Product placeholder image on your product page. If there is no image for a product, by default, it shows sort of like a grayed out square little camera icon. You can change that to be whatever you want. So that's where you would change that. And same with the category placeholder. If you've got product categories that you're looking at, that shows up that way. So for example, this is that bold theme store again. Down here, you see we've got these featured categories, right? So each of these has an image on that product category, but if it didn't, it would be showing the placeholder image that you're showing from here. And then if we go look at products, each of these, right? So if one of those didn't have an image, I think all of ours do have images, unhelpfully for this particular demo. But if one of them didn't have an image, then it would show up as a empty image and just have, anyway, they've all got images. What can I say? We're too efficient. Email settings. These are the emails you want to send, the classic email templates that you want to send for this store when someone resets their password or confirms their registration. Now, these can be different. These can be the same for all of your stores, but if you had multiple stores with different brands, you might want to send different templates to say, hey, thanks for contacting us, blah, 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 and maybe they're different languages. So we allow you to set that on a per store basis. The mail from address is the address that all the outbound transactional emails come from for this store. So again, you might want different email addresses per store. That's available right there. This needs to be set to an organization-wide email address, which you can Google on how to do, and it's also on our help website on how to do it. The SEO and site data, this is where that title comes from. So if we go look at, see here, we've got our store in the title. It's a bit small. Let me just close some of these others. So we've got our store at the top here. So if we go over to this and we go to the SEO information, there it is. So it says our test store. Now, the reason that says our test store and this says our store is because this has a home page down here, we go to this one, the homepage SEO is going to be our store. So the way the SEO and metadata works is it goes from most specific to least specific. So if you're looking at a product, it's going to show the product SEO. If that's missing, it's then going to show the store SEO. If you're looking at a product category, it's going to show the product category SEO. If that's missing, it's going to go to the store. If it's a page, it's going to show the pages one. If that's missing, it's going to go to the store, right? So if we go to, on our store, if we go to another page, you see that one's also been changed to About Us, right? But if we go to a news, article news, it's now showing different things according to, so here we're on our sign-in page. There's no specific metadata on this. You can see it's now changed to our test store, which is the metadata for that main store. Good, good. Keywords and description, they're just standard SEO. You can put whatever you want in there as per SEOing. Now we're in the content management section. We've got being able to preview the store. So you can just click on that link. That will open the store on the correct path. So if we go to this other one and click on the store here, it's going to open within the path for us. So it's just an easy way to find that. And then within this, we've got our custom styles. Now, if you're using a theme editor, you probably don't need a lot in here, maybe just some of the variables. But this is an example where you might use a theme with the custom styles. So the theme might be using CSS variables to define colors and header and footer colors and all that sort of stuff. And then you use the custom styles to define those variables within the CSS. So then you might be able to have one theme that runs 10 stores, but then just specify a few variables within each store that changes the look and feel and changes the color and how it hangs together using that same theme. So that's one way that you can go about doing that, which is quite handy. The home page is the page that you show when you go to the site. If you don't have a home page, it'll just say you don't have a home page. The header content block, that's a content block that lives in the header of your store. So within the head field, up the top of your store. So this replaces, if we're looking here, this is the header, right? So if we wanted to make that something custom, we could do that by going in here and I don't know if we've got a header. Do we have a header? I just want to see if there's something that doesn't look a bit silly. So let's just make one. So we'll go call this a no added styling because we're going to make this partner header test. So no added styling means it's just going to display what's in this directly with, you know, just as raw HTML. So we can go to our Help StoreConnect website and go look up custom header. And let's just steal a little bit of information from here. So this is an example custom header of what our actual store looks like right now. So let's go steal this, put that there. We're on the new version of StoreConnect, so we do this. And I think this partner, it's called the partner menu. And let's go H1, this is our store. And we'll go ahead and save that. So you can see we're using liquid and all sorts of things in here. So I'll just do this just to make sure it doesn't try and convert it into Markdown. And we'll go ahead and save that. And that will synchronize across in a minute again. Which store are we on? Okay, good. We're at the base store. So I'll let that go across. And then when we go to the site, where are we? This one. So if we reload this, boom. See, we've basically just nuked our header. And now we have the basic custom header there instead of the standard one. So that's where you can change header values directly. You can do the same for the footer if you want. So we'll delete this. We'll put that on the footer instead. Obviously, the name doesn't matter. It's, you know, totally to whatever you're using. If you don't specify a header, it's going to fall back to its basic default header. The menu that we're using, so that's defining this here. So we'll do another webinar about how to create menus into the future. But you can see that the header's now been replaced back with its default, and we've now moved that header down to the footer. So this is where you can be very flexible. These menu headers and footers then appear on every page, right? So you can customize that exactly how you want. There's no limitations on how you do that. So we'll delete that. Then we've got our header menu, but we've also got our footer menu, right? So this menu here, we could also set that to be the footer menu. There we go. So what we're doing here is there's multiple ways to define the header and footer. You can do nothing. If you don't specify a header or a footer menu, it's just going to display your product categories in the list and then a count on the end, and that's that. If you specify a menu, it's then going to use your menu instead of the default menu. And then the next level is you specify a whole content block to replace the menu completely, right? So if you do that all the way through, you can get those multiple levels. So if we go have a look at this content page now, we go back to the home page, you can see we've got that header menu up the top, the partner menu, but we've also got down here, that's now showing up down the bottom as well. So if we take that footer menu off, it actually just doesn't show anything. It just shows the copyright. But if we take the header menu off at the top, that's then going to default to the standard header within the site, and that will show up in a minute. I'll just let it catch up to me. So we've now saved that. If we now go back over to our store and refresh, you can see now it's just going to use the standard default header menu straight out of the box. And we've still got our partner menu down the bottom. So there's multiple levels. We try and make it easy to get started and then make the impossible possible. But it's all about, you know, incrementally increasing what you're putting on the site. So down here, we've got head content and body content. These are just content blocks that get automatically inserted either to the head part of your page. So if we're over here and we're inspecting this, so the head content block gets put into this section just before the closing head tag. The body content block gets put into the body section just before above the closing body tag, right? You can use themes to modify where you want to put those tags, but that's where they are by default. So this is useful for things like Google Analytics or Facebook pixels or third-party chat implementations or whatever else. That's where you put those, and that's where they then sit. These labels are what are shown on the website when you're looking at a product page. So if we go look at a product page, where's the bold? Good. So we go look at one of these products. That's a really bad example because it didn't have any content. Let's go into one of these. So you can see down here, we've got warranty details and specifications, things like that. So if you change that word warranty details, it's going to change this here. Now, that was before we had our themes. So now you can do the same thing through translations if you wanted within the themes template. All right, so that's the main object. There was a lot there. In the last 5 minutes, I'll just quickly go through the related lists. So campaigns is a way after checkout to ask a customer if they want to sign up to your newsletter or something. So we call this newsletter sign up, and then we assign it to a new campaign, and we just call it the newsletter campaign. And this can have a start date, and we can save that. And then we can ask them, do they want to sign up, right? You can pre-select, you shouldn't, unless it's like product alerts or something like that, which is valid. You can then set the, you know, we don't sell your data please sign up for special offers, etc. Now, when you do that, what's going to then happen is after the checkout step, they're going to be offered with a checkbox that says, do you want to sign up to the newsletter? They click yes, and they're in your newsletter. So it's a good way to track those. You can have as many of those as you want on a store. Store variables are designed for a bunch of things. And maybe the best way to show you a store variable. So what store variables are for is sometimes in our help documentation, it says in order to enable this feature, create a store variable that has this value and field. So that's all a store variable is. So it allows you to set certain things at the store level for your store that are then available to that store to make changes. So there are various articles in our help documentation that refer to it. You'll run across it. When you do, that's where you set it. Store shipping rates. This hooks up with the shipping enabled or not, and also goes through using zones and shipping and to and from addresses to make sure that we're giving the right rate to the right customer. Payment providers is where you set up things like Stripe or PayPal or pay on account. You can have different payment providers per store, which is important, especially if you're in multiple regions or even in the same region. Maybe you've got two different brands and you want to run each through their own Stripe account. You can totally do that. And that's where you set it. Transactional emails, these are a whole talk in of itself, but these basically fire off these templates based on the order status, the checkout step, and if it's abandoned or not as a cart. And then you can enable or disable these. Now, the status that it gets sent on is fully customizable, so is the checkout step. So you can really customize that to be exactly what you want. Now, if you're using something like Marketing Cloud or Pardo, or some other email integration, you might want to turn some of these off, and that's totally fine as well. But again, this is out of the box. These are sort of things like, hey, thank you for your order. Yes, we received your payment, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. Hey, your order's been shipped. Here's the tracking code. That's where you would edit all of those. Next one down is route mappings. So these are redirections. So if you say want to redirect about, say on your old website, you had about us and you want to redirect that to about our team, and you wanted to redirect that to about us, and you want to make a permanent redirect, you would do that. And then what will happen is when we then visit that URL on the website, so where is it? About our team. So let's copy that and we'll go to, make sure we go to the right store, and we go to about our team. That's going to redirect to about us. So this is really useful when you're doing a migration from an old e-commerce site onto StoreConnect, because you might have specific paths and things like that that you want to redirect. I think we also, from memory, I think we also provide variables on that. So if we go look at route mappings here, there's the route mapping tables. So you mainly use it for route mapping, URLs and things when you're doing migrations from other platforms. So quite often what you do is you'd get a spreadsheet of all the route mappings and just upload it into StoreConnect and populate this whole table. Taxonomies, we went over. Their collections of product categories. Account credit, we went over. Compliance groups, we went over. And then, yeah, that's the basics of the store object. So there are a few things that I didn't quite go into, but they're pretty specific around bookings and events and all that sort of thing. But yeah, there we go. That was the hands-on demo. Hope that was helpful. Virginia, while I take a drink, we'll tell you about our certification.
That's great. Thanks for that, Michael. I'm just popping into the chat the link for our certification so that everyone has that there if you're not familiar with it. We have had our first completions on our certification program, which is fantastic, and we've got quite a few people now moving through that. So we really encourage everyone to get through. There's 2 certifications on there right now. So there's the StoreConnect Basic Administrator certification. That's the first step. So if you can get through that, don't think it will take very long for the people who are experienced with Salesforce. And then even if you're not, we've laid it out so that it's really easy to get through.
It takes about, if you're really good with Salesforce, maybe 2 or 3 hours. If you're not, maybe a day. but it is very quick. And then straight after that is the StoreConnect Administrator certification. We are very soon going to start segregating our partners into who's certified and who's not. So the minimum requirement is you have someone on your team that's passed both of those certifications. So over the next 6 months, probably we'll start doing that, but we really want to get as many people certified as possible.
Exactly. And as our customers are growing, we want to have skilled partners to send them to. I'm going to send today's
leads every day now. It's crazy.
Great. So thanks for attending. Thank you very much, Michael. And send us through any questions. I'd love to hear from you on anything you'd like us to cover in future webinars. I will be sending out the link so you can watch this on demand. It's also on our YouTube channel. And now on our documentation site, down the bottom, we have the link to the technical webinar. So you can click on that and it will take you straight to all of our past webinars. And we will be in touch for our next webinar in the next few weeks.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Bye for now.
Bye.